Oh, thank you, everybody. Um, and my picture just got huge on the screen. I never know what happens. It just happens. But in any case, as long as you can hear me, right? Okay, so I won't touch anything. I welcome one more time, the third time. I've enjoyed these so much. I hope that you have as well. If you remember from our syllabus, keep that in hand. Tonight we're doing movements 2 and 3 of Scott Perkins' work. Please remember that they're online on the members only web page, their page, your page. Lots of materials relative to this concert, suggested recordings, the edit masters, the auditory aids. Just get familiar with all of those gifts that await you there. The format tonight will be the same as has been in the past. We'll talk about a given movement or piece, and then we will listen to it. Some more comments, and perhaps in between, then we'll listen to it again. On the first time, but thanks to Scott Perkins, we have the scores that will be the score which will be on the screen, and you can follow it with the vertical line that moves it along. And then the second time we'll listen, we'll be able to see each other. You may sing along if you wish. Just please be sure that you're muted so that we don't get a sort of a cacophony going. And I think with that in mind, we'll go now to Jack Pot to warm us up.
Okay. As Rick said, please make sure that you're muted and your tray tables are in the upright position, because here we go with getting some singing. Find some posture that is upright. If you're seated, make sure you're sitting well. Just a nice open ah space, ah, because the jaw is down, but also because the back of the tongue is down. Just a simple descending exercise. 1, 2, 3, and was for all of you altos and basses. Back to here, Jim Barry, I love seeing Florence Foster Jenkins singing an ah vowel with us. That is fantastic. Back to here, 1, 2, ready, and ah. Deep breath. Let's go back down in our range to starting down here if you're a tenor or a bass, or starting up there if you're a soprano or an alto, and doing an octave arpeggio, really feeling your voice soar over the top. 2 and a 3 and a 4. And breathe. Energize the breath through the top. Make sure that your air is moving faster. When you're singing the higher part of the exercise, air is a little bit slower for the lower portion of the exercise. Again, 2, 3, and 4. Make sure now that you're tightening your stomach muscles for support before you get to that top note. Relax them to breathe, engage the abdominal muscles to support. Once again on that last one, 2, 3, and 4. down to our mid-range for one last thing. Make sure the jaw is going back and forth very relaxed, but very definitively. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, with that, I think we will, I will turn things back over to Mr. Coffey.
Thank you. Thank you for warming us up. And am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, tonight we're going to be looking at starting off with the second movement of Scott Perkins' piece, Soy un amasamiento, which translates, I am an act of kneading, K-N-E-A-D-I-N-G, kneading. Gloria Anzaldúa, 1942 to 2004, her dates. The poem itself dates this poem from 1987. It's from a collection called Towards a New Consciousness. And that is excerpted from her book, Borderlands, La Frontera, the New Mestiza, Mestiza being a woman of both indigenous and Spanish descent. And now if you look at your notes some other time that Scott sent you, lots more information, including about the translation and much more. And so much of our major work here is about immigrants, our neighbors. And so these neighbors for tonight are from Mexico. Ms. Anzaldúa is from a town on the Texas-Mexico border. This is it's quite an unusual movement. This is the only movement with a second language, Spanish, and not just Spanish, but truncated Spanish and impressions of Spanish, and also some truncated sound effects of English. And I'm going to point out a few for you right away. If you look at page 34 to 35, their scores, you see where Scott chose to, he says it's like baking bread. Amorphogen an inevitable, unfolding inevitable. Those are examples of where the language is pulled apart, needing K-N-E-A-D-I-N-G and put back together. You'll see several of those, and it ends up rather cleverly because it makes up sounds, it makes up words. In tonight's presentation, we will hear Scott walk us through and talk us through some of those moments. And this is also a uniqueness to this movement, is that it's the only one that is for double choir. And these assignments are very important, and you can see them on the Edit Master, and so pay close attention there. But I want to take the time to talk you through very briefly so that you can get more out of what's going on tonight. So the piece begins on page 30, and it says semi-choir. Yes, everybody see semi-choir? In this performance, the semi-choir, the semi-chorus will be the firsts in each section: first soprano, first alto, first tenor, first bass. So you may go ahead and begin to mark your scores with that in mind. And so you see the duties of the opening duties of the semi-choir. Then if you look to page 32, you see where it's called main choir. I think one of the editions called it full choir, but it's everybody. So where it says main choir, the seconds in each vocal part join in. So far, so good. That should be very helpful for you. Now, sopranos, just to point out for you what happens there on page 32, there's a descant line. That is the firsts. First sopranos, that's your line. Second sopranos, you take what looks like a chorus soprano line just before it. So page 32, just to review, the top line is descant. Next down is, once the full choir is in, next down is second sopranos joining. Third line down is alto, second altos joining. Fourth line is tenors, second tenors joining. And then in measure 75, they're the second basses. They're the first ones in. And that's for everybody for quite some time. Now, we can look to page 36, if you would. Again, the semi choir stops singing on the downbeat of measure 85, and then you come back in as semi choir, and those are the firsts of the chorus of the page. The seconds in each section, you hang on to that humming sound at the bottom, as you see at the bottom, while choir one has the last go at the text. I hope that's helpful. Again, it's on the Edit Masters, but now as you listen tonight, you know who you are and where you are. First of each section are the chamber choir or semi-chorus. Now, if we look at page 24, this is where the tempo is quick and very animated and agitated. You will hear more about it tonight. And when we listen to Scott, we're going to listen to one of his tutorials on this movement. One of the things to really important to remember coming out of this conversation is that in this very tricky, rhythmically tricky section, the eighth note, the eighth rest always will be the same. It is constant, the same. So it's not as if you have to determine where is the new, does an eighth here equal a dotted quarter there or vice versa. Is that clear enough? The eighth, once it starts in about measure 45, the eighth rules. And there you have it. And you'll also notice in this movement in your scores at the top of each line, look at measure 47. You see he writes 2 + 2 + 3. Those are just indications of the beat of where the principal beats are. They also are a clue to the conductor as to how he feels that should be conducted. And in measure 48, if you look at that, the beats, the eighth notes are 3 + 2 + 2 + 2. That's important stuff. It's very, very helpful that you begin to think of it that way. He put that in the orchestra parts as well. He wanted them to know how to feel this, and it will pay off entirely in great measure. I hope that those couple of tips are helpful. Now, the final thing I want to discuss with you is the harmonic structure of this beautiful movement. And in Scott's notes, there's a wonderful explication about the harmonic and melodic tools and the methods. And so please read that carefully. But what I want to point out to you, and I haven't even discussed my observation of this with Scott, is that the piece has two harmonic cells, C-E-L-L cells, that are sung back and forth in alternation. And I think as you do your preparation, get the sound of cell 1 in mind, the sound of cell 2 in mind, and that's it. They rotate, they go back and forth. I call it sonic seesaw because that's what it is. And I'm going to name those for you right now so that you can mark them in your score. I've just got to get to the first one. Okay, at the very beginning. So we're all on page 15. We're all on page 15 now. And in measure 22, it's what we call the cell number 1. C-E-L-L, cell number 1. That goes until measure 25 through 25, measures 22 to 25. Then you look at measure 26. That's the beginning of the second cell. And that goes from measure 26 to 29. At the end of 29, we go, measure 30. That's cell number 1. It's not cell number 3, it's cell number 1. You go back to what you've heard before, and it will sound very friendly to you. That cell goes through measure 32. That's cell number 1. Cell number 2 comes back to us in measure 33. And that goes through measure 34, short one. At the end of measure 34, the very end of measure 34 is cell number 1. And then if you look at measure 37, that is cell number 2. So there are 6 groups, each one done 3 times. And I think that will help you as we go. What we're going to do now is listen to the movement with the score on the screen, which you can follow. And after that, we will have a little tutorial. So let's listen to second movement. Well, there you have it. There you have it. I'm on, right? That is the trickiest movement of all five, and it's going to be worth the effort. It's very, very, very engaging. I hope that you found your way through who the semi-chorus is. There was a middle section I don't think I named earlier, but just remember the semi-chorus is the firsts, and when it says full chorus or everybody, that's the seconds join. Let me also remind you that for each voice part, Scott Perkins has provided an MP3 that highlights your part. So I know in listening to that, it's easy to say, where am I? Where do I fit in this? But when you play yours, the tenor one for the tenors, it's augmented, it's played, and it will be extremely helpful to you. And how grateful we are that he did this for us. What I would like for us to do next is listen to one of the 4 tutorials that Scott prepared for us relative to this movement. He provided one for each vocal part. And tonight I just arbitrarily chose to do altos. So it's going to feature the altos, their sound will be highlighted and so forth. So everybody can be altos tonight. And it's interesting, he sings it for you, and he sings the alto part down an octave, and it's really down at the bottom of his range. It's kind of fun to hear. But he did not have to do this for us. He did not have to do any of this for us. But so these tutorials, the movements each with your part highlighted. Then there's a version where nobody's highlighted, but you hear it all intact. It's really very, very, it's comforting to have. I'll just put it that way. So now let's listen. This is just auditory. There's no visual to this, I don't think. Is there, Jack? No. This is just listening to the tutorial for altos. Everybody's an alto now for 13 minutes. 13 minutes. Okay.
Hi, this is Scott Perkins, and this is a message for the altos. First of all, thank you so much for working on my piece. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to write a live poems for you, and I can't wait to hear the premiere. I wanted to explain a few unusual things in the second movement, Soy un amasamiento, to help you in your practice. The word amasamiento, as the poet Gloria Ansaldúa explains, means kneading, as in what you do to dough when making bread, and she uses that term to describe herself as a beautiful blending of cultures that results in something new and evolved. So I decided to depict this kind of blending in my musical setting of the poem by merging words. So you might notice that in certain sections I repeat a couple of words a few times, and they gradually join together to become new words. And the new words are entirely made up, but because you've heard the component words repeated a few times before you hear the made-up words, you know what the new words mean or represent. As a singer, though, it's a little unusual to sing made-up words, so I'm going to take you through those sections and demonstrate how I intended for them to be sung. The first section where this happens begins on page 15 in your vocal score, so please pause this recording until you're on page 15. Okay, so taking a look at measure 22, you already see a blending of 2 words, soy and un. That's not unusual at all in musical settings of Spanish text, actually. Often notes share multiple syllables. The way to sing it is not to try to articulate both syllables clearly, or to break up the 8th note into 2 16th notes like this. Soy un amasamiento. Rather, just connect the 2 syllables seamlessly and fit them into the space of an 8th note like this. Soy un amasamiento. You may have noticed that the same thing happens with the 4th syllable of amasamiento. It's not mi yen, but rather mien, like this. Soy un amasamiento. But things got a little weird on page 17 in measure 25. Here's what I'm not looking for. Umasamiento. Here's what I am looking for. Umasamiento. Umasamiento. Hear how I'm closing to the M of umasamiento, which is a made-up word, on the third eighth note of the measure? Umasamiento. Furthermore, please don't put a glottal stop before the next word I. Instead, just blend it with the end of the previous word, like this. Umasamiento, I am an act of needing. Umasamiento, I am an act of needing. Here's what measures 20 to 26 sound like sung at tempo, and I'm going to take some breaths in between syllables that you don't need to take as you stagger breathe with your section. Soy un amasamiento, soy un amasamiento, un amasamiento, un amasamiento, I am an act of needing. That same principle holds in the English lyrics right afterwards. Take a look at page 18, and you'll notice that the two-syllable word needing is split into what looks like three syllables: need, I, and ng. So what I'm looking for in measures 27 and 28 is not I am an act of needing, an act of needing. Rather, I'd like you to separate the I from the ng and perform it like this. I am an act of needing, an act of needing. The same thing happens in measure 29, and the last time you sing needing, you lose the last syllable altogether and just go into of uniting. Here's how measures 27 to 30 sound spoken. I am an act of needing, an act of needing, act of need of uniting and joining. I am an act of needing, an act of needing, act of need of uniting and joining. And here's what it sounds like when sung. I am an act of needing, an act of needing, act of need of uniting and joining. Things get really weird in the final section of the movement, which starts on page 32, so please turn to that page. In this passage, the words integrate completely to the point where you really can't tell at all what the original words were. In a few places, I've used the schwa vowel, notated as an upside-down lowercase e, which I mean to sound like as in the word the. Now that you know the general principles, I'm just going to demonstrate your part a few times. First, I'll speak it twice under tempo. Spiritual mestizaje, amorphogenesis, spiritual mestizaje, amorphogenon, inevitable unfolding, unfolding, spiritual mestizaje, amorphogenesis, spiritual mestizaje, Amorphogen inevitable, unfolding, unfolding, Now I'll speak it up to tempo. Spiritual mestizaje, amorphogenesis, spiritual mestizaje, amorphogen inevitable, unfolding, unfolding, Here's what it sounds like when sung under tempo. Spiritual mestizaje, amorphogenesis, spiritual mestizaje, amorphogen inevitable, unfolding, unfolding, And finally, here's what it sounds like when sung up to tempo. Spiritual mestizaje, amorphogenesis, spiritual mestizaje, amorphogen inevitable, unfolding, unfolding, Finally, I want to speak the mixed meter section for you, which begins at the bottom of page 24. I'm going to speak all of the parts together so you can hear how your part fits into the choir as a whole. While I speak, I'll snap the beats, which are either quarter notes or dotted quarter notes. Okay, so I'm starting in measure 43. First, here it is slowly. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready? Go. We are the people who leap in the dark. We are the people on the knees of the gods. In our very flesh, revolution works out the clash of culture. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, go. It makes us crazy constantly. But if the center holds, we've made some kind of evolutionary step forward. And here it is a little faster. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, go. We are the people who leap in the dark. We are the people on the knees of the gods. In our very flesh, revolution works out the clash of culture. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, go. It makes us crazy constantly. But if the center holds, we've made some kind of evolutionary step forward. And finally, here it is up to tempo. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, go. We are the people who leap in the dark. We are the people on the knees of the gods. In our very flesh, revolution works out the clash of culture. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Ready, go. It makes us crazy constantly. But if the center holds, we've made some kind of evolutionary step forward. I hope that helps a bit. Thanks again for your hard work in preparing Alive Poems, and I look forward to meeting you at your dress rehearsal in May.
So, very helpful, is it not? I love seeing that come into play. He actually referred to the Mets to the dress rehearsal, but we now know that he's going to be with us on our chorus only rehearsal during production week, that Monday night. We will get to meet him, have some refreshments before that rehearsal begins, May the 16th. If you see Jim Barry's screen there, that is the poet's picture. I don't know where he found it, but there she is. How nice to see that. Let me just repeat. Repeating is what rehearing is, right? Rehearsing. Please look up on the resources that movement, the tutorial for your part, and then also the musically highlighted version for your part, and you can do it. I have a observation to make, is that we can't really master this piece, this movement, unless we've done a lot of homework ahead of time. That's why these sessions are so helpful. And the tools, I think, are so helpful. And I would like for us to come into that first rehearsal of each movement saying, oh yeah, I've got this down. I can say this in tempo. And so you've gone 2 years without a rehearsal, so now you can make up for lost time and start just rehearsing at home. And it put strains on the relationship in your household, but who cares? Just rehearse until it feels really good for you. And that having been said, now let's go back either with our scores in front of us or however we want to do it. I recommend that. And let's listen to that second movement and see what we think. Thank you, Jack. All right, before we go to the next movement, I would like to ask you to please look at page 32. And I want to just add a tiny bit more information about the two cells that I was referring to earlier, the harmonic cells, CELL. And that is to point out that on page 32, 33, 34, they come in very rapid succession. So I'm going to call them out for you. In measure 77, that's cell number 1. In measure 78, it's cell number 2, quick modulation. In measure 79, it's cell number 1. In measure 80, it's cell number 2. Measure 81, it's cell number 1. Measure 80, measure 82 is cell number 2. Measure 83 is cell number 1. I'm going to say those again because I hope I didn't mess up. Give it one more time. Measure 77 is cell number 1. Measure 78 is cell number 2. Measure 79 is cell number 1. Measure 80 is cell number 2. Measure 81 is cell number 1. Measure 82 is cell number 2. And measure 83 is cell number 1. So if you learn those cells, you just drop them in at the right places, those two back and forth harmonic moments. It's quite effective, as a matter of fact. Okay, let's look at the third movement, Escaped Stories, which begins on page 38. Leslie Marmon Silko, poet here. It's very pivotal. It's the middle movement of our suite of 5, and it refers specifically to stories and to memories. It's very poignant, I think you'll discover. In particular, Silko writes of the struggles of America's indigenous peoples as treated by some of the from the colonization of the country. Now, in this poem, an old woman explains how she tells escape story. There she is, Jim Barry. Yay, look up there on Jim's page. He's got her up there. So this old woman explains how she tells escape stories as a means of survival, preserving through her words the memory of not only those who escape danger, but those who do not, unfortunately. And note the helpful and a charming composer footnote to the vocal range. Let's look at page 38. This is Scott Perkins, of course. I love this. And he's got asterisks to direct us down there. If you look in measure 8, there's the asterisk over that G flat. He says, if you are unable to sing notes marked with an asterisk, Leave them out and replace them with a rest. Do not sing them an octave higher. If you are able to sing those notes, bring them out a bit and use a rich, full tone. These notes should not sound emphasized, but they should also not sound weak or breathy. So low G flat for sopranos and tenors. We'll see what you got, and I think you'll be fine. Let's look at the end of the movement, page 44. And tenors, here's something for you. At the end of this movement, the divisi there is for basses. Basses and baritones take the two lower notes. Tenors, you have an A flat. You see that? Right? You have A flat and then you stay on A flat. Why is that important? Because it's a G flat major chord that ends this piece. So how normal and beautiful is that? A G flat major chord dropped onto which is this beautiful A flat. And I've already marked in my score, tenors, to ask you to do an espressivo as you hold that note at its end. In other words, bring it out, bring it in, take it out, bring it in, take it out. Maybe a little hard to hear on the electronic version, but tenors, it's the right note. It is an A flat, and do enjoy it. All right, let's listen to movement 3 of Alive Poems. This is Escape Stories. Oh, thank you. I've come back to life. During the course of the hearing of that, my screen just went completely white and there was nothing. And so, so now I thought, what do I do? But we're all back together again. Isn't that just a cherished moment, that pivotal movement of escape stories? And I really have nothing else to say about it except that I would just enjoy hearing it again. And I'm not going to move so that I don't wreck it, because I want to watch you as you follow and sing along if you wish. All right, so Jack, let's hear that again.
Sorry, I accidentally closed it when I stopped it last time, so I had to go back and find it. Give me just a moment here.
It happens to the best of us, you know.
Here we go.
beautiful, isn't it? Oh, good, you're nodding. That means you can hear me. That's so comforting. Uh, the piece moves me deeply. That movement truly does, and I think it will you, and I think it will our audience. Tenors, did you hear your A flat there at the end? Isn't that, man? It's just so nice. As we look to next week, let me just suggest this for you. Next week will include the fourth movement and the fifth movement, and the men on the b-ball Ave Maria. But for that fourth movement, let me suggest this. Take whatever preparatory time you have. Say the words in rhythm. You've got a metronome, set the metronome for the Maya Angelou poem, and because the words are what it's all about. And even whether you don't even sing a note of it before next week, say it. Begin to say it, and find, oh, it's just so colorful, and it's just like she says things all of us want to say, and sometimes we're afraid to, and but she gets it out there, and it's just extremely powerful, and the roof comes off at the end of it, as you will see. So let me just remind you again that next week is fourth movement, fifth movement of Perkins. The men's piece we'll put at the end, as we did last week with Brahms. And so women, of course, you're welcome to stay and listen to that rehearsal with the men. Gentlemen, I'd just like to recommend that you look at the Ave Maria before then. Notice the repeat marks, notice where you sing, who sings where, and we have a beautiful recording of it by Chanticleer that we'll be listening to next week. And that's all I have for us tonight. Thank you all for being here. Take this extra 18 minutes to, just do some homework, or just go have a martini or a Manhattan and say that it's been a good night. And I appreciate everybody being here. Can't wait to see you next Monday night. So long.